The Human Echoes podcast is brought to you by Albert Berg's book, What the Dog Saw. Check it out on Amazon now.
Welcome to the Human Echoes podcast.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I am Albert Berg with low energy today.
Keeping it mellow. We got to give you guys a little bit of time to recover from episode 100.
You know, okay, this is that. I'm recovering from a parenting thing that nobody ever told me about. You know how people they talk about the transition of potty training and stuff, and how difficult that is, and all that work. Parents won't shut up about that.
Yeah.
But I am experiencing a phenomenon that I've never heard people talk about before in the raising of a child, which is the training to stay in a regular bed when you have gone from a crib to a regular bed.
Yeah, I've definitely heard about that. Like, one of my friends is going through it right now.
So frustrating. He woke up today. He was up at midnight yesterday, and then again at 5:30, and I've got him down for a nap now at 9 in the morning or 10 in the morning now.
So he's got the freedom to just book it now.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go to sleep. He's up. You can tell he's tired, and you can tell he's tired because he's fighting sleep by bashing his head against the wall. He's running in circles yelling, rah, 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 because he's Godzilla. And then, he's like, I'm still getting tired. Pop, 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 pop.
I always wonder if it's why don't they just make a bubble to put kids in for a little while? Just something you could put over the bed, like a glass jar with some holes in it type thing.
They just don't have to. They call that daycare, Tony.
No, I'm saying, the kid needs to sleep. Just make it so it's, mostly soundproof, and if something serious happens, something wakes you up. But then they can't escape.
The thing is, he had a crib. We would have left him in the crib for the time being, but he's climbing out of it. So he was climbing over the bars of his prison, and we're like, we respect that you're able to climb this high, and it's very cool that you're learning how to do that, but we don't want you to get hurt. So we're going to take the railing off and put this little, just sort of shelf up so that you don't roll out of bed accidentally, and we're going to start teaching you how to do this. But he's just like, I can wake up anytime I want to. And we're like, and it's really my wife who bears the brunt of it. When he wakes up at 5:30, I don't wake up because I've just gone to bed 3 hours earlier. But she does, and she has to deal with it, and it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. My friend who's trying to do that, her daughter wakes up and just runs and dives into her bed, wakes her up, and then, immediately falls back to sleep, and then my friend is awake just because she had a 2-year-old laying on top of her.
We generally shut him in his room. He has his own room. So we'll hear him, kicking the door and stuff. And then sometimes he just kicks the door because he can. I don't think he's actually trying to get out, but then he'll also freak out and be like, Mommy, 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 Mommy! So then we have to go get him for that. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever call for Daddy when he's stuck in there. He's never, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy! You see, when I'm in here and he's outside, then he'll yell for me. But
yeah, I think I was more like that whenever I was a kid. And then later, just my mom was done with it. She was like, you're not allowed to yell for me anymore, whenever I was 3. Oh, yeah? Yeah. She's like, I'm tired of this.
You remember this when she was 3? When you were 3, she sat you down and was like, or Tony.
Yeah, she was like, you're not allowed to hold my hand anymore. You're not allowed to, yell for me. Just stuff like that. I was 3 or 4.
You must have been super clingy.
Probably.
Because I can't imagine my wife telling our kid at this point, don't hold my hand. Because half the time, half the challenge...
You're trying to guide the kid through a store and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he's pretty good, but sometimes he just likes to take off running, and when you're outside and there's a major busy street, like within 30 or 40 feet of you, and he takes off running towards that major busy street, that's the time when you really want him hanging onto your hand.
Yeah. Oh, my mom also incorporated the use of those little, like, kid leashes.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, which is pretty sad, but there were 2 of us, so she's got a slightly better excuse.
I guess I'm about to be going through the 2 for experience now. I know I've been talking about it nonstop, but it's filling my my view screen as I come up on it in my life.
11 days.
11
so
days.
It's coming up quick.
I had another panic attack. Like usually I don't, I'm just like I'm gonna have another kid. It's gonna be fine. But I just had one of those ones where like, it's coming up. I'm gonna have another kid. I just like freaking out. Like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I was like, I had to like say, Albert, you'll figure it out. It will be okay. You're not the first person in the history of the world to have to deal with 2 kids. I'm sure it's doable. It's somewhat difficult. And I'll be off of work. I'll be off of work for 2 weeks, which is nice. So, I'm taking a break to help my wife.
You're in your last 264 hours without having 2 kids.
To break it down with hours? Actually, it sounds a lot longer now. I'm going to relish each one of them. How many minutes?
That would be 15,840.
15,000 whole minutes until then. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I've got ages.
All right, and you've got 950,400 seconds.
No, that's not very long.
Not even 1 million seconds. You've broken that plane. I have, at a minimum of like 8 to 9 months, if I were to be having a kid. So I feel good about that. I've got time. Although I was thinking about it the other day, I have to have kids.
Why?
I have to have a son. I have to carry on the Southcott line. I'm the last one who can, at least from my dad's line.
Is that weird? Like, I'm in that position as well. I don't feel much pressure because I don't.
Oh, you also
care
are
about
going to
my
have
family.
2.
I mean, I care about my family. Like, I care about them in the sense that I don't care about the family as a name or a.
Well, I also have a pretty unique last name, so like, if that dies out, it's just gone. Berg is all over the place.
It doesn't matter though. Like, is that you're gonna procreate solely for the sake of like? Look,
it's not solely.
People aren't gonna have the name Southcott anymore. We need to have a kid.
Think about
is
it
that
this
your
way,
pickup
though.
line? Like, you want to do it, honey? Just think about this awesome.
You could have the
I
distinct. Yeah, you could have the distinct privilege. You don't even need my last name, but the kid does. You don't need to be there, but yeah,
you could carry
the line forward.
9 months.
But think about it this way: like, if you don't have a kid, you are the end of a long line that extends back hundreds of thousands of years of humans. Like, just the abrupt end to a bloodline. That's weird.
I'm not because I have a sister. She could have a kid.
Well, I'm saying, like, your particular line ends there. And that's a little bit weird that it's gone on for that many thousands of years, and then it just comes to a stop.
No. See, I need clarification how my sister doesn't count if she has a kid. How is she not carrying on the genetic material just as much as I am?
I mean, she's not the same genetic material as you. It's similar, but it's not the same.
Nobody's the same genetic material as I am, or ever has been.
It's like done with. It's over. You successfully replicated yourself twice, so technically your entire genetic material.
I did not replicate myself. My kid has different genetic material as well.
But you did it twice, so like you got a half.
Like, honey,
you got a half and a half. So therefore, you have one genetic replica.
No, that's not how that works at all. Have you been reading comics again, Tony?
No, I'm just talking about the things that people throw at me at work, because everybody thinks that I should already have like 3 kids because I'm 27.
A friend of mine, we were talking about some comic stuff at work the other day, and a friend of mine was talking about how that there's a clone of Wolverine, and I was like, oh yeah? And it's like, yeah, it's a girl. That's not what clone means. You can't clone someone and then have them have different genitals.
There's all that talk about like eventually being able to genetically alter just small aspects to make someone like male or female and such.
If they did that, if they're like, we've successfully managed to clone Wolverine, but we want this new Wolverine to have a vagina.
And that's the only difference? Still burly and hairy?
It's like a 15-year-old girl, apparently, in the continuity of comics, so That makes it even worse. Again, I don't read comics because I can't afford it mostly, but it just sounds so... It's like people just come up with, genetics is just magic in the comic world. You can do anything. You can clone anyone. Everybody can do it.
Could make a whole clone army that doesn't look the same.
We were also postulating in the same conversation, we're like, it doesn't make any sense that Captain America is the last person to ever be successfully injected with that serum. Right? Like, they had 50 years.
They lost it.
They had 50 years to figure it out. Howard Stark was there. You have got to know that Howard Stark stole that dude's research. Because Howard Stark was that kind of guy. Like, he was all for, the progress and stuff, but this guy's a German, and he's, got something that Howard Stark doesn't have. I guarantee you that dude went into his file cabinets and took the papers.
Yeah,
so
pretty
Iron
much.
Man has the technology to recreate. So, anyway, we were talking...
It's just going to be like a thing later where they're like, oh, Captain America has to go up against 400 400 people that have gotten this serum, but because of the truth in the American way, he was victorious. It's probably because the other people are going to be Canadian. So what do you like? You have it so that the guy that plays like Falcon is going to be the new Captain America soon. What do you think of that?
No? Who said that?
Yeah, no, it's like it's in the news and everything. It was like the same week that they announced the Thor thing, so it was a little overshadowed.
Oh, are you talking about in the movie universe?
Yeah. Which
No.
makes me think that they're going to actually have like Chris Evans killed off all Civil War style.
No, that's not going to happen. I guarantee you. First of all, people don't die in comics. Well, especially heroes don't die in comic book movies.
They eventually have to.
Secondly, if anybody's going to replace the Captain America, which people are talking about, here's my theory on this. Chris Evans wants to take a break and do some other stuff from doing Captain America.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Entertainment Online article right now that the Falcon becomes the new Captain America, even though it should be...
I'm going to pull it up. But, okay, so here's my theory. Wait, where?
I'm on the Nerdist right now. I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Marvel Comics reveals that the Falcon is the new Captain America.
Okay, I found the Nerdist article. Marvel Comics is not Marvel movies, though.
Oh, I thought they were doing it for Marvel movies.
Yeah, I asked you specifically, is this for the movie universe? And you're like, yes.
Read that. I thought I read that.
No, okay. You're getting things mixed up. There is much fan speculation that will become Captain America's persona. He will take up the shield.
I'll go on Lazarus Pit with it.
What? What does the Lazarus Pit have to do with anything?
Just saying they're replacing him. People won't know.
I'm so confused as to what you're saying right now. People will realize that this is not Steve Rogers. They will look at him and be like, you've got all this weird stuff on your face. You're not Captain America.
Why not just... Why does he take the helm or take the cowl or take the shield?
Because of the wonderful things he does. All right, no. You got to listen to me, Tony. You're not letting me tell you.
All right, what's the difference between like the Lazarus Pit and that? Where they're just conveniently remaking him as a different person.
I don't know what you're talking about with the Lazarus Pit. You're not saying a thing that makes sense.
How does this not make sense? They're replacing one guy with another, and continuing the line of Captain America down to someone else.
I don't know what the Lazarus Pit is.
Editor's note, we get into some kind of serious spoiler stuff about The Dark Knight Rises, and I'm not sure how we could have this conversation without cutting out the whole thing. So if you haven't seen the movie, you want to fast forward about 5 minutes or so.
It's like whenever they replaced Batman at the end of, spoilers, at the end of The Dark Knight Rises. They used the Lazarus Pit to replace Batman, so someone takes up the cowl and acts like Batman so that, it can continue on.
That didn't happen!
That's what happened.
At the end of The Dark Knight Rises, the movie?
Yes.
No! That is not at all what happened! What is wrong with you?
So, Joseph Gordon-Levitt isn't the new Batman in that universe.
I don't know that he's going to take up the name Batman, but he's got all the stuff there. He might become Nightwing. If they left it. They concluded the trilogy. There is no allusion to the Lazarus Pit anywhere in any of those movies.
Take the actual Lazarus Pit, the full-on Lazarus Pit.
There's no actual Lazarus Pit. It does not exist.
Yes, there is.
It's not a real thing.
Ra's al Ghul uses the Lazarus Pit.
He's not a real person.
Yeah. He uses the Lazarus Pit. Look it up on TV tropes. He uses the Lazarus Pit because, like, the Ra's al Ghul has basically been the head of the Shadow Organization for, like 1,000 years or something. They basically just find the guy who's most likely to replace him and change him into Ra's al Ghul. Look up the Lazarus Pit.
I've heard of the Lazarus Pit, all right? But I have no idea what it has to do with the Batman movies. It doesn't, all right?
Except that it's all over the place.
No! There is no supernatural crap in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
It doesn't have to be supernatural. It just has to be a resurrection of the character through some other means.
You're infuriating me on purpose right now, aren't you?
Well, I'm telling you, it doesn't. It's a fictional phenomenon where basically it's a fictional phenomenon where they replace a character with another character, even though they're not the original character. That's the entire point of, like, the Ra's al Ghul thing.
That has nothing to do with the Lazarus Pit. They just do that because they kill people off, and then somebody's going to be like, I'm going to be the new Batman. No, I'm going to be the new Batman. They don't make that person literally become Bruce Wayne. They just take the costume and do Batman-type stuff.
It doesn't matter if it's Bruce Wayne. It's Batman.
I know! That's why I don't have any idea why you're involving the Lazarus Pit in this. The Lazarus Pit is for resurrecting the same person again.
No, the Lazarus Pit is for resurrecting heroes in the DC Comics universe.
Yes.
If you Google Lazarus Pit,
I know what the Lazarus Pit is. You put a dead person in, they come back alive. It's not a different person.
Not according to this.
No. I don't know what you're smoking, Tony. But no!
I'm telling you, it's not the same person. It doesn't have to be the same person. Because Batman is a concept more than anything else. He's the man in the costume. Inside the costume doesn't matter.
Why do you need a pit to resurrect?
Why don't you need a pit? Everything's better with a pit. You can't tell me when you were like 7 years old you weren't digging a pit in your backyard and pissing off your mom because you dug up a bunch of a bunch of grass to make a giant hole in the ground.
I'm done with this conversation.
Can't tell me that you didn't dig for fossils, man.
I made chips yesterday from scratch. I sliced up the potatoes myself. I put them in the oil. I salted them up. They were super good. You guys should try that sometime. Just like slice the potatoes really thin.
I made booze yesterday, or I got to try my booze yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Like my home brewing. So, this lemonade I got.
Did it come from the Lazarus Pit lemonade stand?
Oh, there was a lot of death and life involved, whatever you count the yeast, I guess. Fermented Lazarus. That's what I'll call it. But, anyway. The lemonade was just beautiful. Like, you taste it, it's got just this little bit of carbonation because you use champagne yeast. And, let me go back a little bit. I'm home brewing. It takes about 2 weeks to turn a gallon of lemonade that's $1.50 into a gallon of booze. It's awesome. It tastes amazing. It's got a little bit of carbonation. It's not super. It's like only like 5% alcohol. So, like, it's about the same as drinking a normal beer. And it's just awesome. And it's less than $2 total to do, like, this whole thing and make this lemonade. The problem occurred whenever I made my cider and my orange juice, because I didn't read on those that those ones have to be refrigerated.
Okay.
So the lemonade was fine. The lemonade was perfect. The lemonade is everything you could dream it to be. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I could get the funds to open a bar called the Lemonade Stand and sell this stuff because it's so good. The cider and the orange juice. I want you to imagine a gallon of orange juice in a glass jar that looks perfectly fine until you pour it. And it tastes like sweat that rolled down like a very dirty hobo's ass.
So it tastes like oaf juice. Got it.
Yes, tastes like oaf juice.
You made alcoholic oaf juice? Or is all of oaf juice alcoholic?
So basically I took... oaf juice is probably all alcoholic or maybe even hallucinogenic depending on the person.
Okay.
But you take a swig of this and you immediately go spit into the sink, curse about 16 times, like put the little sprayer from your sink in your mouth and just spray it out and like start gagging, doing all that sort of stuff. It was terrible. And so I go to dump it into the sink, and I notice that at the bottom there's about 2 inches of a congealed goo that is the exact consistency of like 7-Eleven nacho cheese.
Nice.
And like I was like, I just drank part of that. Like, granted, it was a tiny sip, but holy crap, that was terrible. It took so long for me to get that gunk out of the bottom of the bottle. Like, just put it straight down the garbage disposal. It's probably going to clog some pipes, like cement up and everything.
Only you would think of that, like, oh, look out, I'm going to clog some pipes up.
But yeah, the lemonade's amazing.
You didn't know that you were supposed to refrigerate juice?
Well, like, there's a lot of different, if it's pasteurized, you don't really have to. Like, the only thing you need to make juice alcoholic is to get juice with no preservatives. And the lemonade was just fine, because basically yeast just is the sugar. And we didn't, like, people were like, oh, yeah, whenever you get real cider and put it in, you don't have to refrigerate it, it'll ferment faster this way. And so we just did that. And apparently it wasn't, like, the perfectly pasteurized stuff that we were supposed to use. So next time we'll do that. We'll put it in the fridge and let it go for 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks.
Wait. Pasteurized juice?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
All juice is pasteurized, or most juice, like especially sold in stores.
I don't...
You just boil it to get the bacteria out. Like, go look at, like, the apple juice, or the apple juice in the store. Like, most of them will say 100% pasteurized.
I guess it can be, yes. It's the day that it's used widely in the drinks and food industry. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah.
I've only heard of it in conjunction with milk.
Yeah. Have you ever had unpasteurized raw milk?
No, because I don't want to die.
Yeah, well, if you work on a dairy, like, just try it. It's perfect. It's amazing.
You want to talk about a movie?
I don't know. You sound like you're kind of beaten down right now.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out your logic, but for why a regenerative trope for regenerating the same, like a person who already exists, is the same as replacing that person with an entirely separate character.
It's because Ra's al Ghul is an idea, not a person.
You just keep saying words that don't actually make any sense.
You're resurrecting the idea as the new Ra's al Ghul.
No, you're not. You're actually...
That's it. They talk about the Lazarus Pit directly in the first Batman movie.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. Like, Liam Neeson is up there, like, doing his gravelly voice, being all badass, talking about, like, the Lazarus Pit.
I'm not seeing it.
Google Lazarus Pit, the first flaw for DC Universe.
I didn't say it wasn't in the DC Universe.
Dark Knight Rises set reveals
Batman's...
Lazarus Pit.
No, it doesn't. Lazarus Pit film, the only 2 films mentioned are Batman Under the Red Hood, which is awesome, and The Son of Batman. Those are the only films, and they're animated, and they're not part of the Batman continuity by Christopher Nolan. You're making stuff up!
Ra's al Ghul used the Lazarus Pit.
No, he didn't!
100%. 100%. Guaranteed. Verified.
No, it isn't!
You're thinking it has to be a supernatural phenomenon. It doesn't.
I'm thinking it doesn't occur in the movies, Tony!
It does. He comes to the party and says he's Ra's al Ghul. After he kills Ra's al Ghul accidentally when a building falls on him.
That was your
interpretation. Like Liam Neeson goes to it.
That was your interpretation.
That's what Ra's al Ghul says.
No.
They've replaced him like 100 times over the course of the centuries.
Tony, I'm going to blow your mind here. He was always Ra's al Ghul in the movie. Liam Neeson's character was always Ra's al Ghul. That weird bald dude was a decoy.
That was Ken Watanabe. He was Ra's al Ghul.
He was not Ra's al Ghul. He was like
then who was the Ra's al Ghul before Liam Neeson?
Who was pretending to be Padme in episode 1, but wasn't actually Padme. It was actually the servant girl, and then she's like, wham! They didn't use a Lazarus Pit on Natalie Portman to make her be... She was there the whole time. That's because she never
died, because it was PG. They just killed off Liam Neeson so that the next Ra's al Ghul could come back.
That's not what happened. It doesn't occur in the movie. You're making this up.
I'm telling you, it's real.
It's not.
It is. Just like they Lazarus Pitted Batman.
Anyway, you know what? The Lazarus Pit does not exist in the Marvel Universe. So
but there is a lot of pits in the movie we're discussing this week.
Well, there's not.
Pits to hell.
It's a terrible, terrible segue.
Oh, like we've been so good at segues over the last 100 episodes. At least there was a segue.
You made it up. You're still lying. You're lying about everything today, Tony.
I'm not lying about the Lazarus Pit.
Yes, you are. It's not in the movie continuity. It's definitely not in the Dark Knight Rises. There's no Lazarus Pit. It's not what that is.
Would it have been better if I talked about Lazarus being resurrected for this movie? Just make more things that don't happen? According to you?
What? I would never say Lazarus getting resurrected was...
No, I'm saying in this movie it didn't happen.
Well, it didn't happen I think it happened in the continuity of the movie somewhere.
Probably, since it's, like, super Catholic.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about the movie, Tony.
It only took us 25 minutes to get here.
Constantine is a movie with Keanu Reeves, where Keanu Reeves plays a exorcist/demon hunter type superhero.
In the DC universe, so technically,
and
your tweet with Batman punching a demon could happen.
Yeah, well...
There would be a good crossover there. Would be interesting.
He's not in the continuity of the movie, though, so...
I know.
I had fun tweeting about this movie, though, when I was tweeting about it. But it's about a demon hunter named John Constantine, and he's all tortured and stuff, and he fights demons. That's the movie.
And he has lung cancer.
He's
the Heisenberg of exorcists.
And he has this whole thing where, like, he committed suicide at one point, so he can't go to heaven, but he still works for the Catholic Church, and he wants to go to heaven.
He's trying to buy his way back.
Yeah. I just...
Did you finish the movie?
I did. No, actually, okay, here's the thing. I don't have any energy left. I kind of like this movie. I thought, for one thing, the visual aspect of the movie, the cinematography and the colors and everything that was used, the green and kind of the red contrast that they did, a lot of lighting stuff, camera angles and everything, all that stuff was, I thought, really phenomenal. I was surprised at how good the movie looked from the cinematography angle.
I also like the sheer volume of, like, different special effects, because a lot of movies you see the same couple effects used over and over again, and, like, every time you turn around, they're doing some new thing with the ground, new thing with, like, the different demons, things like that.
I also thought that generally the story was somewhat compelling. I liked, Constantine's struggle. I thought that played well. That his desire, he knows that hell exists and he doesn't want to go there, but he doesn't know how to avoid it in this, super Catholic universe. I thought that really worked. The one thing I think that really ruined this movie for me, and I don't even say ruined, but definitely undercut its effectiveness, was Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, he was just a little too deadpan, and I know that I'd want to argue, that's just the character of Constantine, but he's kind of a British smartass in the comics, so.
Well, it's not even... The deadpan stuff is fine, but you need to see that humanity underneath. You really need to empathize with that struggle, to understand, even if you're not, religious or whatever, that this character is freaking scared of going to hell. And...
Yeah, he's more pissed off than scared. Maybe,
somewhat. Yeah. I think it's important to him, though. I think that's a thing that he's like, no, I can't deal with this. I don't want to go and live there forever. So and especially a lot of the other characters too. I think Rachel Weisz, really did a lot to save the movie as much as it could be saved from it, because her performance was amazing.
Yeah.
In this, and I really even kind of liked Shia LaBeouf's performance. I don't actually hate...
He's so young in that movie. It's kind of crazy to see.
He doesn't look that young.
I'm just saying, it was one of his very earliest movies.
Yeah, and you definitely see his sort of Shia-isms, but he does that sort of natural, quote-unquote, speaking, where he's kind of repeating himself or stumbling over his words or whatever, that it feels like a real person talking, but somehow still comes off a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
My issue with him is that his character did not matter at all to the story. He was just there.
He almost had a chance to matter, too.
For no reason. He comes in and does stuff, but it's not like, wow, if he hadn't been there, that movie would have been so much different.
Yeah,
I think they could have literally
have
cut his character out of the movie, like just cut his scenes out, and it wouldn't have made a bit of difference to the story.
Yeah. I think the only time he even had an impact was during that last exorcism.
Right, and even there,
right
you could have just had
just
something else happen where Constantine wins. It's not like that was a pivotal, like, oh, it's all been culminating to this. He just, he just
it was a decent moment.
It was okay.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about him, or it's just the character was just pointless. I'm assuming that it's a character from the comics that they needed to shoehorn in there because
in the comics I've read, he isn't there, but I've only read the first few trade paperbacks.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there could be. See, like, it's just.
That series has been going on for like 15, 20 years.
It's such a random thing to have. Like, you've got this young kid in a taxi chauffeuring around your demon hunter guy with no explanation for where he came from. All you know is that he's kind of trying to learn from them, but where did they get that taxi? Why is that the car they drive around? It's kind of an interesting idea. It looks cool to have him driving around in a taxi. It's a very unique. I like unique vehicles. That's a weird thing to say, but I like when you see the hero driving along and you're like, that is the hero's car. And when you see somebody driving a yellow taxi, like an old dingy 1980s or 70s style car, yellow taxi, that is a very unique look. I got that also. Yeah,
especially in L.A. as opposed to like New York or something.
Right. The other weird thing, this is kind of a weird segue, but in Hemlock Grove, the season 2, one of the main characters gets a tow truck because he's a tow truck driver, and I love that. Every single time I was on screen, I'm like, that's our guy. He's got a tow truck.
I guess the car for the vampire in that is also pretty fitting.
I forget which.
Like that, it's just like an old school like rich person's Jaguar or Rolls Royce or something like that. Just really kind of cool looking, unique car. More of a classic car buff type thing though.
Yeah. But
it's a pretty big contrast between the two of them though, like gypsy versus rich kid. Like
you're talking about Hemlock Grove. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking, there's a vampire in Constantine? What? I don't remember that. He drives a Jaguar. I was so confused. I didn't see that part of the movie at all. I was just going to, like, bluff my way through it and be like, yeah, that was kind of an interesting car. Like, move on to something I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely was going to lie to you people and say I knew what Tony was saying. I had no clue.
Like the Lazarus Pit. Knowing what we're saying.
Do not!
But anyway. I kind of wish that some of the other side characters would have had a little bit more time, like Beeman and the big priest guy. I think his name was Hennessy. Yeah. Like, I kind of liked those characters, and Papa Midnight was cool, too.
Yeah, I really like Beeman. Hennessy I didn't get exactly. Like, the first time he shows up, I'm like, this guy's not right.
Yeah.
Constantine, this guy's not right. I think he's possessed or something. Go back and deal with this guy. How could you not see he's all, like, twitchy and nervous around you? And then they never addressed that either. There was a lot of stuff that didn't get explained, like, at all.
It'll be really interesting to see what they do with these characters with that new NBC series that just came out. Like, Constantine is now a TV series.
I saw about that. I haven't actually seen it, except for, like, I think the first 10 minutes of the first episode, and I didn't.
I accidentally downloaded the first episode because I was just, looking for Constantine, because I have the DVD somewhere, but I couldn't find it. And so I'll watch that later today, make a judgment call on it.
Okay, it's on Hulu. You don't have to pirate it, Tony.
Oh, I accidentally did.
Anyway, there was a lot of stuff in this movie that didn't get explained. There was, like, the finding of the spear at the beginning of the movie.
It just happened.
It just happens. The dude's just, like, stomping around on some boards. Oh, here's a spear wrapped in a Nazi flag. I'll run off and be a demon now. And then he walks around, like, that character with the spear walks around for, like, 5 minutes, and had that really cool scene where he's walking along and the cattle just start falling over, And then he's gone from the movie. They don't ever show him giving it to Gabriel or spoilers on who gets it, whatever. They don't show that transfer of ownership or what happened to him or anything. He's just there for 5 minutes and then he's gone. And I think there's a lot of stuff. I assume there's a lot of stuff that was translated from the comics, but they're just like, the comic book fans will get it, and didn't ever.
Oh, there's a lot of comic book fans that say this is an adaptation in name only.
Well, see, then it makes even less sense. There's all this implied universe stuff happening, and I kind of like that, but I want a little bit more detail. I don't need everything to be spelled out, but I want to know, like, this guy has this whole network of informants and stuff. Where does he fit exactly within the Catholic Church? Who is he working for? How did they find him? None of that
sounds like he's more like a freelance guy. Like, not that he's like any sort of official part of the Catholic Church.
Well, who's paying him? That's another good question. Where does he get his money to drive around in his taxi cab and fight demons? He has to eat.
Have a rather large apartment, even if it is above a bowling alley.
Yeah, so
he's always wearing $200 shirts and things.
It's I really feel like he's actually working for the Catholic Church. I think they've got him on the payroll. I think he's the best.
Could definitely be that.
Stylistically, the movie really works, like I said, on a stylistic level, I think. But other places, it starts to fall apart. The only thing, really, from a special effects perspective that I didn't like, and it wasn't the effects themselves, per se, but, like, how they were presented, I didn't like that all the demons had that, like, half-head thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was
that
cool
was
with
an
one
odd
demon.
stylistic choice.
I thought it was cool with one, but then when you see, like, 50 of them running around with half their head chopped off, you're like, they all have that exact same cut on their heads. What is that supposed to represent? Again, maybe it's a comic book thing that is just implied, like, oh yeah, back in the day, he had a big fight with these demons and he cut their heads off, and but only the top parts, and you don't know about that, but it totally happened. But it doesn't.
Yeah, I never heard any sort of satisfactory explanation for that. I don't know if the directors ever talked about it, like why they chose to do that. It looked cool, but like you were saying, it's just there wasn't a lot of variety in Hell as far as like those particular demon types. I
was very interested because the movie looked so good. I wanted to see like who was involved with this. The cinematographer, director of photography on this, I looked on his IMDb page. I wasn't able to find anything super like Oscar-worthy notable. There was a number of films that I recognized, but he's been in the business for like 40, almost 40 years at this point if he's still alive, because his earliest film credits are like in the 70s as a director of photography. And then the director proper of this started out with music videos.
Yeah, he was doing like Lady Gaga and Britney Spears videos and things for years before this.
Yeah, and I felt like that actually was a very apt sort of transition because there's a very music video feel to how this movie looks. And like I said, there's a lot of style and maybe not very much substance, but you really see that coming through like from the director's direction. And
I didn't know this, but he's the one who directed Catching Fire and like the new Mockingjay movies that are coming out.
Yes, I noticed that as well, and I thought I really liked those. The new one anyway. The
new one was just a lot clearer, it was just a stronger movie, even though it was a weaker book. And we've talked about that before, but like I think a lot of that might be the result of this guy's stylistic choices.
So props to Constantine for exceeding my expectation as far as. At least the style and the feel of it. It could have been worse. I'm not going to put it on my top 10 movies of all time list, but I definitely really enjoyed watching it. And I wish that there was stuff that got explained better, but the stuff that I saw was neat. Like that scene, and it's at the very beginning, but when when the dude walks through that field with the cattle and the cattle just start dropping dead, that is really a cool scene. I think you've told me about that in the past. Like, hey, the scene is pretty cool.
Yeah, even just like the way that like the first exorcism at the beginning of the movie played out, the way he's getting out of the cab, just the camera angles and everything else. Like I don't know, it just worked, and I really liked what.
In the exorcism, the mirror, like they're trying to get it through the window, and he can't get it through. It's like just tilt it a little bit, dude. All you gotta do is just.
Heat of the moment.
I guess. The only thing I could think of was that it had to stay in that orientation so that it was still reflecting
didn't fall out or something.
So it wouldn't, it would still be in there. I couldn't tell. That was they used that several times though. The reflection Rachel Weisz has it several times in the movie, not one time with the demon thing, but also just when she's talking about her twin, she gets really close to the window and she's going to breathe on it to reveal the writing on the window. But you see her reflection there in the window, and it's like that whole, obviously it serves a story purpose for her to be there like really close to the window, but you see her looking back at herself, her reflection, her twin, as she's talking about her twin. I thought that was really neat. And then several times when they have her shot with Constantine, I don't even know what the point of this, like, as far as from an actual logistic point of view, like, why would he would have this? But they have her behind that green pane of glass, and he's over there and kind of, like, painting with the colors and sort of, it's very evocative. Again, very true to the music video style that he came from. And I don't think, that's not a negative at all for me. I really liked how he used his images, even if like I said, I would like a little bit more explanation for some of the stuff.
Very much so. And, like, even almost put a music video into it whenever he, like, goes in the bar and, like, a perfect circle is playing and all that. That's actually a pretty cool video for the movie. Like, I really like that song, Passive. It's a good one. But what I was going to ask you about is, what did you think of Gabriel?
I was expecting a little bit more, because Gabriel obviously is a guy's name. Yeah. Angels are generally thought of as being either male or more androgynous. I liked, when you told me they casted Tilda Swinton, I liked the look. I looked at her and but I would have liked her to make her voice more mannish.
Yeah. Be a little bit closer to that, like, mid-level androgynous.
Where you're like, I can't tell if this is a guy or a girl. In the movie, it's like, look, it's a girl. Like, it's Tilda Swinton. It sounds like a lady. And
still androgynous, but not quite.
Yeah, the face is androgynous, but the voice, I think, could have been either, like, lowered in post, or, you know, possibly dubbed over, or she could have done something different with the voice, maybe. But I was, you know, I didn't see any appreciable difference there, and I was a little bit disappointed by that.
Yeah, she might look androgynous, but she has a very, very womanly voice.
Yeah. And that's not a criticism of Tilda Swinton or anything. It's just, like, when I first saw her picture and you mentioned, oh, she's Gabriel in this movie, I thought, I had a picture in my head that there was going to be this very confusing, like, is it a guy or a girl kind of a vibe going on. And they didn't do that at all. And I was a little bit let down by what my expectation was compared to what actually happened.
I suppose this is, like, slight spoiler territory, but what did you think of that last talk with Beeson being Lucifer? I really like that scene, but that's just me.
I was okay with it. I liked that he was dressed in white. I didn't make the connection that it was the same character as how dumb I am, because I just, you know, I was like, oh, I guess Lucifer's just this weird guy. I liked how he called him, basically, and just, you know, he's like, I know you want to collect my soul, and then just lays all the cards out on the table. But that was, you know, that scene was okay. I thought that this is a weird thing, but when you have the demon thing trying to get out of Rachel Weisz, I was almost like, I'm glad they didn't go here, but my brain went here. It's like, he's in her belly. They're talking about her giving birth to this thing. I mean, I guess you can go the C-section route, but I'm just saying there's other ways that might happen.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few directors that could go there.
That would not be cool.
I mean, the movie was rated R, so they could have pulled it off.
I don't know that you could pull a full-size demon thing coming out of that area at it. Maybe if there was, like, something covering it or something, but
it would have to be off-screen.
Yeah.
Just like a spray of blood.
That's just what it put in my head. And the way they did that effect was really cool with the skin bulging as the face was trying to tear its way out and all that. That was neat. But I don't know, for whatever reason, because they used the word birth several times, I'm like, that's not how birthing works.
Yeah.
And then I was really
considering, like, the birth is like
image.
Spear to the face, like, is what. Like, that's what I didn't understand. It's like, if they bring down that spear, it's straight up going in, like, Mamon's face.
I didn't like how they pronounced his name, by the way. Because the way that name is spelled, it's Mammon, which means money.
Money? Really?
Yeah, Mammon. In the Bible, it's used, I forget what the verse is. Jesus talks about, don't, you know, lovers of mammon rather than lovers of God. Meaning that or something along to that effect. That's the idea being that, you know, the love of money is a bad thing. I actually like the idea that that would be the name of Lucifer's son, that, like, money was his offspring and sort of the root of a lot of the trouble in the world, the love of money. But they didn't ever, the way they, I don't know if that, I assume that was intentional, that it was spelled that way. Nobody, a writer, you know, writing the script would know what that was, but it was just sort of interesting to me that they didn't, like.
Yeah, because that's I'd never heard it pronounced any other way, but I really hadn't heard it except in this movie.
I was watching the movie with subtitles, so I kept seeing Mammon on the bottom, you know, underneath, and they were pronouncing it Mammon. I'm like, that's not that. And I realized they may not have actually been saying that, you know, they may have been trying to make a distinction like this isn't actually money or something, but I actually like the idea of a demon representing the idea of money and that love of that lust for riches being a destructive force. I thought that was a kind of a cool concept, and that he would be like the second most evil thing because the love of money is the root of all evil. You know about that?
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, it makes sense that would be Satan's son, that he would be in there, like, causing all that trouble that money causes when people love it. You know, I like that. But anyway, I thought the most interesting thing to me about this movie, we talked last week a little bit with Danny Brophy about how that every movie creates its own universe. I think that got in the recording.
It did. It did.
Every movie lives in its own universe, and you have to accept, you know, certain aspects of what the universe the movie creates are true. Regardless of how much sense it makes in the real world. And one of the things I thought was really interesting about the universe that this movie created was that everybody in the universe that I can tell from what they showed on screen is either Catholic or atheist. You don't have other religions. You don't have other denominations. Like,
Papa Midnight might have been something else.
He's working. I mean, he acknowledges there are demons and there are angels and there's a balance. Like, the movie's theology is universal. Nobody's going around talking about, well, what about Krishna? What about, you know...
what about Allah,
right.
Muhammad, etc.?
Yeah, no, and you could argue that, well, that doesn't make any sense, obviously, and you could maybe dig deeper and make that a problem, but I actually thought that worked to the movie's advantage. Because once you start saying, well, what about people who don't believe, you know, this way, or it really starts to undercut you start losing the logic of the movie. So I thought it was cool that they basically created a universe in which Catholicism is universal, which is why there's crosses everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. I get that. I mean, some of the places they're in churches and, like, hospitals and stuff, but there's the one place where they're just on the street and, what's her face? Rachel Weisz's character is standing right in front of, like, a Jesus, you know, display.
Yeah, like, Mary's, like, behind and the lights are fading around her head and everything.
Yeah, I thought it looked fine. I was down with it, but the prevalence of Catholic iconography in this was so, I don't want to say over the top, but it was very interesting to me that they made that a universal thing. It's like, we're not going to go into the whole doctrinal question. This is the reality. There really are demons. There really are angels. Either you believe that or you don't believe it, but you're certainly not going to believe in some weird Hindu god, because that would be odd, and that would totally screw up our whole universe.
Yeah, it just unloads a lot of baggage that could have been placed on it, so that's a good thing.
Right, because then they would have been like, is the Hindu, you know, if you're a Hindu, are you actually worshiping the real god, or are you worshiping a Lucifer god, or are you just not worshiping a real god at all? Is it just made up?
I wonder if the comics go into that, because, like, you could, if there were demons of different religions and stuff, it could make some interesting stuff, but I don't think Constantine would have near as much power against them.
That would be a whole thing. And you get into a really thorny issue, and it's a movie that, it's really interesting how religious a mainstream movie it is, because Gabriel's beef, and you know what, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but Gabriel turns out to be bad, which he or she or whatever doesn't seem very nice to begin with. But her whole thing against Constantine is that she's pissed off that humans are the only race that gets redemption. And I love that they play that up, because that's not a thing that the average sort of non-religious person would really put much weight on.
Yeah.
If you live in this universe where spirits and angels and other creatures in the universe are real, and she even mentions, like, other worlds and other creatures, just sort of an offhand comment where she says, of all the creatures in all the universe, you are the only ones that get to say, I'm sorry, and God's like, okay, I'll forgive you. And I like that because from a theological standpoint, that's almost how it has to be, unless you want to have Jesus going and dying on 100 other planets where other species live. And if you're one of those other species, like an angel or something, and you didn't get that opportunity, you could see why you might be a little bit pissed off at the humans. Like,
yeah, especially when you're like, you're in like eternal servitude, and if you fall, that's a permanent choice that you can't come back from. But like humans can be just completely dismal and awful, and so long as they get like their last rites and their deathbed confessional on, like it's all good.
Right, and I really thought that it's not an angle that I think a lot of people would consider seriously today because of sort of the secularization of the culture. And I thought it was really neat that they played that as a very important and serious motivator for her. Maybe it's because I'm religious, it played better for me than maybe other people will go in the theater like, what?
No, I've that entire conversation, like where she like climbs up and it's a side panel, but it's put on its side, so it looks like they're face to face.
Oh, that was such a great scene.
Yeah, that was a.
Anyway, I've gushed enough about how this movie looks. Sorry.
Yeah. But, like, that part was probably, like, I used to like the Lucifer part more, and whenever I was watching this last night, I was like, this is the conversation that's kind of, like, the most defining and interesting part of the movie. I'm kind of glad we spoiled it. I'm sorry, people, if you haven't seen it. It's a 10-year-old movie.
Yeah. You know what's weird? I had an aspect of this movie spoiled for me on the day I was watching it. Like, it wasn't a big deal. There's nothing, I think, that ruins this movie. We're like, oh, my gosh, I knew this thing was coming. It ruined the movie. Partly because it is such a visual-heavy film, and you just if you're going to enjoy it, you got to watch it for that visual aspect. But, I was halfway through watching the movie, and I had to go to work, and I was like, I'm going to watch this when I get home from, tonight. And somebody brought up Constantine and was like, yeah, Shia LaBeouf's character dies in that. And I was like, spoilers! They're like, shut up. That movie is 9-10 years old. I was like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and if you watch the stinger at the end of the credits, did you watch that?
I did not. I was tired. I went to bed.
Shia LaBeouf is an angel or something at the end.
Oh, is he? Did you watch it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I watched the stinger a long time ago. He's like at the headstone, and then all of a sudden Shia LaBeouf like jumps up, or falls out of the sky, is there for a second, then flies back away.
Okay.
Which I was like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but whatever.
So anyway, I like this movie.
That's why it was after the credits.
I liked it more than I thought I was going to. I really.
Anytime I suggest something, I figure you're not going to like it. And from the tweets, I was like, there's things in this that sound like he's entertained, but I can't tell if he likes it.
I gotta be entertaining on Twitter. Even if I'm fine with the movie, I gotta find something funny to say.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna tweet the movie, I gotta have fun tweeting the movie. So. I really liked his like crummy Batmobile. We drive around in this taxi cab, apparently from country to country. Because didn't he? Wait a minute. How did they get that taxi cab from wherever they were in Asia, doing their exorcism, back to L.A. for the main story?
Asia? They were in L.A.
Was that
the whole time
in L.A. when he does the exorcism with the mirror? I thought he flew back or something. And we just didn't see that. I was like, well, I'm glad they didn't show him flying back, because that'd be a boring scene. Like, I just got back.
No, that was in L.A.
Why are they just Spanish people, and they don't? Yeah,
they're Spanish.
Okay.
If you go to L.A., you'll find that there is probably, I wouldn't say half, but maybe a third of the population is Hispanic, and a lot of them are just straight up Mexican from Mexico.
There was just so much not English happening in that scene that I just assumed it was in a different country. It was shot like sort of gritty, and I realize that all that stuff exists in the U.S., but I assumed that they were trying to tell us this does not happen in the U.S. I don't think I saw it. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't think I saw a title card saying, just outside Burbank. Or anything like that.
No, but it's kind of funny, because if you ever go to like my Uncle Joby, he's not really my uncle, he's more of an adopted uncle. Like I went to his mom's house, and she's just this little Mexican lady, and it's pretty much a scene from this movie in that house, where it's just like Catholic stuff every 6 inches on the walls.
Right.
Like it's exactly like that little apartment, just so much iconography and everything everywhere. She's like one of the little ladies that goes to church 6 days a week and makes the best tortillas on the planet. I can't speak with her because she speaks only Spanish, and my Spanish is rudimentary. But it's interesting just, like, being in that house. Like, she's not a wealthy lady, but as soon as we got there, she's making us fajitas and everything.
That reminds me of my grandma. She's dead. That's sad.
How long ago was that?
I don't know. I want to say 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, it's about the same for my grandma. Like, she was gone a little bit before that because of Alzheimer's and everything, but, like, she was an awesome, awesome woman.
I didn't never really get to know her that well because we only went up there, like, 1 week out of the year, and I always kind of resented, like, we always have to go up here. I wish she'd lived a little longer so I could have known her as an adult and appreciated her more. But she cooked for us all the time, and her food was really great. It was a lot of everything homemade, had her own garden. You know, rhubarb. Every single year she would send us home with a jar of strawberry rhubarb jam, and that was just the best.
Yeah. My grandma's main dish was, like, scalloped potatoes and ham. Like, I just completely inappropriate amounts of that whenever I was at their house. But also, like, pancakes and all that. She was just, like, the classic 50s woman, like the one that's very jovial, like, can I get you anything? The hostess, the very kind woman and everything. Like, she was one of my favorite people. And I got really lucky in that we built an apartment for my grandparents at the house I grew up in. Like, we actually took a bunch of sawzalls, cut the roof off the garage, had a crane put it in the driveway, then built an apartment for them, put the roof back on top of it.
Right.
And so they were living with us for about a decade before it got too cold for her, and she just wanted to be back in South Texas. But I got to go on trips with them. Like, every year they would take us to, like, the Grand Canyon, Carlsbad, or they would take us up to Mount Rushmore and things like that. And, like, we were the only grandkids that got to do that, so we got a lot of time with my grandpa and her.
Yeah, there's just stuff you don't appreciate as a kid. I think. I mean, part of it. You know, like I said, it was partly time, but I think, like, her cooking especially, you know, it was a lot of vegetables and stuff, and as a kid, you know, like, I want a corn dog or something. Not that I mean, she was an amazing cook. She cooked, like, Swiss chard with, like, little bits of bacon in it and some brown sugar, and that was just amazing. But, again, like, in my memory, it was amazing, but as a kid, I'm sure I was just whiny and, like, insufferable, and I feel bad about it now. I wish I could go back and, like, appreciate her more when she was alive. So
yeah, it's always just rough with that. Like, my mom always talks about the regrets, and she got to spend a lot of time with her mom, but she regrets the way she treated her whenever especially in her 20s.
I really appreciate my parents a lot, though. I'm glad that, like, as an adult now especially, it's like my parents are the best.
Yeah,
I love them so much. So my voice is so shot.
Well,
got me
since we're kind of at
death pit.
Since we're at kind of a slow spot, how about we throw that story on?
All right, we got a story by Donald
Donald Jacob Eichflugt. You can always do it whenever you do it angry and fast.
Eichflugt.
Try Eichflugt. Okay, this is it was a competition a few months back. We were kind of slow on this one, admittedly.
I've been busy.
What the Dark Fears. Or What Does the Dark Fears is the contest, and here we go.
Read by John Jones, the amazing.
Survival of the Weakest by Donald Jacob Eichflugt. Read by John Jones. I was giving a Brelax nightmares when Cathartog found me. The Brelax are fun creatures, cephalopods with a collective mind. Visions of sharp teeth and seas of blood had its tentacles in knots, creating lots of wonderful despair for me to devour. If I could get it to touch more of its kind, my nightmare would spread like a virus, the darkness seared into the awareness of an entire species. Evelbrop. I acknowledged Cathartog's presence and finished my work with a flourish. What do you want? I still hadn't forgiven him for killing off the dinosaurs in a jealous fit. Marvelous creatures, not much upstairs, but capable of such delicious brute destruction. That world you're fond of, Sol 3, there's a problem. I frowned. Our kind do not have problems. We existed before the beginning. We number in the billions. We howled in the void before the universe was made. For countless eons we feasted and frolicked, fought and fucked in the dark spaces between the growing galaxies. Then a strange new scent reached our awareness. We followed it like sharks following a blood trail, our jaws dripping black saliva. Not that we have jaws, or any form at all. We followed the tantalizing scent to the cradle worlds of physical life. What a cosmic joke! The shat-out atoms of dead stars suddenly eating and reproducing, moving around on its own. We loved tormenting these creatures and consuming the energies created. We twisted their evolution, draining them dry and wiping them out. Some of us said we should wipe out physical life entirely. It was a blot on existence. The rest of us were having too much fun. What do you mean, problem? We don't have problems. We are the problem.
It's hard to explain. Easier to show you.
I gave the twisted Brelax a shove towards its pod, and then thrust my fist into Cathartog's heart.
If this is a ploy, I will shred your existence and scatter the strands until it will take you 1 billion years to gather yourself again.
Distance means nothing to our kind. In a flash, we were at Sol 3. I grimaced in distaste. Mammals. The place was overrun with mammals. Creatures that lived off the bodily secretions of their own kind.
Why are there so many of us here? Watch. The hairless ape things.
I saw one of us invade the nightmares of a sleeping mammal. Such miserable things, huddled in their caves. The creature screamed as its mind was flayed from it. Energy burst forth, energy that even I tasted as we watched. Sweet, but oh so rich. The flare died as fast as it came, leaving the human a shriveled husk. Odd that such simple things hold such energy, I said, but I don't understand your concern.
Look closer.
The one of us who had killed the creature was licking her lips. I couldn't blame her. Such a delightful flavor. Wait, her? When she had invaded the human's mind, she had taken the form of a hideous female monster with serpents for hair.
With the human dead, our comrade should have reverted back to his original form.
Cathartog indicated the swarm of us around the planet.
The more we feed off the humans, the more we become their monsters, their nightmares. If we kill one of them, we can't change back.
I licked my lips, still tasting the residual energy released by that one human's death. It has to be some sort of trap, to look so weak and taste so good, yet to have such a power.
If it's a trap, the humans didn't set it. It gets worse.
We saw further down the timeline of the trapped monster, saw her drain the lives of centuries worth of humans, leaving husks like statues, until a human came along with a reflective shield and cut off her head.
Do you see?
Cathartog was in a panic.
They can kill us. We have to do something.
My mind raced. What do you expect me to do? Our kind has held an orgy of destruction since the beginning of the universe. Suddenly you want us to exercise restraint?
They breed like insects while our numbers are constant. If they discover they can kill us, they'll wipe us out.
Already I saw it happening. Humans slaying dragons with spears, staking vampires through the heart, shooting werewolves with silver bullets. Perhaps if we made them wipe themselves out first. So Cathartog and I twisted their imaginations and polluted their environment, sent plagues that decimated them, caused their leaders to dream of wars. We never caused death directly, but even then, the taste of their distress was almost too much to bear, like being an alcoholic forced to work in a liquor factory.
They don't need us to destroy themselves,
Cathartok said after centuries.
They're killing more and more of themselves every year. We've won.
He licked his lips as he said this, perhaps thinking that he could finally feast and die. I looked around us. I hadn't seen another of our kind in a long time, not one that hadn't been frozen into a human's nightmare. And there were fewer and fewer of those. We haven't won. The humans don't need us anymore. What happens to a monster when people stop fearing him, stop believing in him? They've won, and they didn't know they were fighting a war. Cathartok went off to pout while I contemplated Soul 3. Maybe passing from existence wouldn't be so bad. I was tired and so very hungry.
Donald Jacob Eitflute lives on neither coast of the United States, but mostly in a haunted memory palace of his own design. His short fiction has appeared in numerous print and online venues, including Necrotic Tissue and the Wiley Writers Podcast, as well as the anthologies Dying to Live and A Fistful of Horrors. He strives to write what he calls haiku fiction, stories that are small in scope, but big on impact. If you enjoyed Survival of the Weakest, let him know at haikufiction.blogspot.com or on Twitter at haikufictiondju. That's twitter.com/haikufictiondju.
Donald is an amazing fan of the podcast. He's been the one who's been putting together all of our top 10 lists and stuff, like really pushing people to be like, what's your favorite episode? And he compiled a whole blog post, which I think I retweeted. I hope I retweeted it. About the...
I saw it at like 11:30 at night, so I didn't retweet it on the podcast account because I actually wanted people to see it. Anything after like 9 o'clock on Twitter just kind of vanishes into the ether.
Right.
So, like, we'll definitely.
That's why I send all my funny tweets.
Yeah, I know that it bothers me so much. I started, like, for a while, I was using TweetDeck to schedule tweets that I thought were clever late at night, just because I was like, I actually want someone to read these.
I don't care at this point. I'm not sitting here thinking, man, has nobody read my tweet? I know nobody's ever gonna every time I see a tweet with several hundred retweets, I think, apparently nothing I've ever said in my entire Twitter history was this funny. And sometimes it's actually funny, and sometimes it's not. But obviously,
most I ever got was 185 retweets.
That's a lot, Tony. I think the most I've ever got is like maybe 10 or 15.
It was off of like it was the kaiju size chart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it was something I didn't.
Not even your content. Okay.
Yeah. So I can't really take much credit for that. People that like retweeted the podcast account liked it though. I found that the thing that gets the most, like, the thing that actually gets people's attention is art more than anything else. People just want something they can digest in 10 seconds and hit a retweet button.
You also have the comedy accounts, which I kind of like. But I'll see some people retweet all these different comedy accounts. I'm like, I don't need jokes all the time. Like, I worry if that was all my Twitter stream was, but both in the production and the receiving level, I would be just bored with it. I think I just get cynical, like, no, that wasn't very funny, whatever about that, I feel bad for somebody. I don't even know what they really gain out of it, but some of these novelty accounts, like, that just tweet jokes, that's all they do.
Some of them actually make decent money with it. Like, the Batman account, like, I was reading an article on it. It was either Batman or one of the other major parody accounts was getting, like, $3,000 every time they did a sponsored tweet.
Oh, okay, so they will, like, send out to see that?
Yeah. Like, if you all of a sudden are sponsored by Doritos to send out a tweet, like, twice a month or something for $500 to $1,000 to $3,000, makes a little more sense on making those jokes.
Yeah. You also have the issue, too, there where, like, you know, if you're not already famous, you're probably not going to become Twitter famous on your own anymore because it's, you know, everybody's sort of in those trenches of this is what I follow now.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of room for newer content, I wonder.
Yeah, it's hard to break through at all on anything, like, unless you're one of the pioneers. Like, you look at a lot of podcasts out there that aren't, like, the most spectacular quality, but have been in the top 10 charts because, basically, momentum. And every once in a while you see something new, like, break out, like Welcome to Night Vale went from nothing to just doing European tours and live shows and things like that really quickly. But that takes a little bit of luck and time and just kind of caught fire.
I don't want to talk about Welcome to Night Vale. We've already discussed that.
I was just using it as an example, like, more than anything. But, yeah. Anyway.
I wanted you to see something, Tony. This is a completely different transition, but on Netflix, I saw they have the documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is Pumping Iron, I think. Was that what it's called? Let me pull it up here real quick.
Yeah, I think I saw that earlier when we were looking for movies. Pumping Iron?
Yes. And I want you to see the clip of Arnold talking about, from this documentary, talking about the pump.
All right. Arnold the Pump. All right, I've got a video here.
All right. Play it.
All right. Okay. Arnold's basically making his biceps bigger. He looks very tired. That's insane. I think his pecs have more like muscle mass than most of my body.
Is he talking about the pump? Because I can't hear it.
The greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in a gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call a pump. Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute. You know, it's really tight. It's like someone blowing air into your muscle. It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic.
It basically sounds like he's talking about his muscles getting an erection.
It's exactly what he's talking about.
It's as satisfying to me as coming.
Oh, that's what he's talking about now.
As having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven? I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up. When I pose out in front of 5,000 people, I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night.
Coming day and night,
I mean, it's terrific, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of California. Former governor. We got to be economic girly men. I wonder if he was thinking about that whenever he's giving, like, stump speeches for his campaign.
He gets bored, he just flexes really hard, he's like, oh, yeah.
That'd be an excellent photo op. He's just doing a speech, and he just flexes and rips his suit jacket.
He should do that. Like, at some point, he'd just be like, have, like, some kind of, like really thin, like, with the seams or whatever, not that good, just like, do the whole thing. That'd be great.
That was certainly something.
We quote that each other at work all the time. That's like perfect. Oh.
Yeah, that's so, like, if I tried to get people at my work to quote that, I might get fired.
We're in the back, and nobody cares. As long as we get the truck unloaded, they don't care what we're doing. This is a little bit of a weird transition, but I did want to talk about this because it was super weird. I got an email this morning. Actually, I want to, like, early this morning, like 2 a.m. I didn't actually check it at 2 a.m., but that's when it came in. From Amazon, asking me to write a letter or an email to the publisher Hachette, demanding that they, like, succumb to Amazon's demands about ebook prices, and that, you know, is it though? It's I don't think. See, this is the thing. All right, and I assume that somebody at Amazon realizes this, but this is not at this point as much a battle over just the pricing anymore. This is a public opinion thing. People are paying attention to the Amazon Hachette little squabble. And I
full disclosure, I thought it was Hatchet the whole time.
Okay, well, whatever. It's Hachette. I mean, I've heard other people pronounce it. I know that it's with a soft CH. And I don't have a dog in the fight per se. I like lower ebook prices. I understand why Amazon wants lower ebook prices. I get both sides of the argument, but Amazon is much, much, much bigger than Hachette. And they've been throwing around their weight, which they are, okay, fine, you can do that as a company. Great. You have that power, so I'm not really offended if you use it, but it's making them look like a little bit of a bully, I think. There's
definitely
public perception thing of people not being able to order the books they want from Hachette because Amazon's in their pissing contest. And now I just read recently that they're doing it with Disney, which that's going to be super interesting. Amazon
it's like a heavyweight bout if I've ever heard one.
Pulling, pre-order stuff from Disney movies. But the practice of saying to self-published authors, because I'm only on KDP. It's not like I'm any of my stuff is available through any major publishing house. I'm not Stephen King or somebody. I make $2 a month off of the stuff that I sell. To send an email to me and say you need to write a letter to Hachette demanding that their prices, that they succumb to our demands. For one thing, I don't see what I have to do with it. And for another thing, it sounds like we have this big email list of authors that we know get easily pissed off about ebook prices. So we're going to sick them on Hachette and make that part of the battle. And it's very, to me, it's not helping their cause.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of ebook authors and self-pub authors that just want to see the entire publishing industry burn. They just want all the...
See, here's the thing, though. Amazon is part of the publishing industry. You're self-published on Amazon. So is, by the way, and this is, so is CreateSpace, so is Barnes & Noble. All these outlets are part of that system as well. And both ends, I understand that publishing houses, the way that aspect of things works is, there are some problems with the whole business model. And maybe it does need to kind of get rearranged and resettled, and that's what kind of why I like smaller publishers like Angry Robot, sort of redefining. They're a lot cheaper on their ebooks, and they even their audiobooks are less expensive, which I like a lot, especially if you've already paid for.
Yeah, it's like $7 even whenever you don't even if you don't buy the paperback. A lot of times you can find Angry Robot books for under $10 for an Audible book.
Right, and if you buy the Kindle edition, they're like $2. It's really good. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Amazon there's no way they look good in this. They're sending a bunch of little peons against Hachette, trying to, first of all, Hachette doesn't care what Kindle self-published authors think. They've got J.K. Rowling and the Silkworm, coming out, so they're okay with that. But it feels like a bully sicking a bunch of other little bullies on this publishing company. That's going to change their mind. I don't see what Amazon gains from this. They're gonna end up looking like the bad guy. They're gonna look mean and nasty and just weird.
It's just a bad call from their PR department and from whoever's making that decision.
Right. There's so little to be gained from this and so much to be lost, because once people start thinking about Amazon as a bully, then I think people have a generally very favorable view of Amazon. But the more this gets public attention, the more people are going to say, yeah, they're just like that Walmart company. They're just like, those guys, they don't pay anybody in their warehouses. And they're going to become that other big corporation that is only concerned about itself and throwing its weight around. And that's true of every big corporation, I understand. But they're in kind of a nice place right now as far as how people perceive them. And maybe they can afford to take the hit. I mean, they have business spread all over the place to the point where you don't know all the sort of online store distribution stuff that Amazon manages. I've heard they manage other actual stores like Sears and stuff that Amazon runs their online store and distribution for them.
And I always buy Woot shirts and things like that, and they bought Woot, so they sell off a bunch of their surplus stuff there, and it's just every time it seems like I find a new website, you hear a few months later that it's getting bought by Amazon or managed by them.
Right, and so they've got
your checkout through them.
Roots really deep, and I don't think anything is going to kill them, but I think it's unwise for them to shoot themselves in the foot with public opinion, because that can, I think, really affect things. And if you get
especially when books is like their big thing. Like, that's what started the company.
I do wonder how much, because they're so diversified, part of the argument I've seen is that Amazon's book prices are cheaper because they're actually subsidizing them in a lot of cases. They're actually taking a loss on a number of their bestseller books just so they can become a bigger player in the market, because they can afford to, because of all the other stuff that they're involved with.
Yeah, and whenever you get that corner on the ebook market, though, you can make a whole lot of money when all you're doing is sending a file out. I wouldn't be surprised if, with the Kindle Fire, if they're subsidizing that a little bit, or pretty much making nothing off of it just to get that device out there to buy ebooks.
Right, and so, I don't know. It seems like a weird thing that they're doing, and I don't necessarily have like a call to arms or like do this, except for if a book is overpriced, don't buy it. Like, that's the only thing you need to know, is that nobody's forcing you to buy anything.
The only time I've ever paid $10 for an ebook was for John Dies at the End, and I felt like that it was actually worth my $10. But if it's like a $13 ebook, or like it's $8.99 for the ebook and $10 for the paperback, like I'll either buy the paperback or I'm not going to bother with it.
Right, and I think people are going to know how to vote with their money, and it's just frustrating to see. It's frustrating to see it playing out like this. This is not. And part of me is glad that it's getting wider attention. This whole struggle over what ebooks should cost and publishing, and is the industry sort of a dinosaur and kind of locked into the way things were done? But I don't know. It's a weird thing for Amazon to do, and I don't hate Amazon. So that's part of the reason why I'm like, why are you killing yourself here? Why are you shooting yourself in the foot by making this, more public than it already was?
Yeah. Because
people aren't going to side with the big giant company. They're going to side with the people, I think anyway. Generally, if you've got something that looks like a David and Goliath conflict, people are going to side with David. They like to see the little guy win, and Hachette really looks like David right now compared to Amazon's Goliath.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry if it was a little low energy, although, you know what? No, it wasn't.
We got high energy for the Lazarus thing for a little while.
I don't even know. I still don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to talk about it anymore. My voice hurts. You're a crazy person, Tony. Anyway, I was going to give you my theory. I'm going to close with my theory. What they're going to do is Captain America is going to seem to die. All right? It's going to look like he dies at the beginning of the next Captain America movie, because he's trying to atone for all the bad that he's done. Spoiler for people who haven't seen The Winter Soldier. You can beep that out if you need to, Tony. Will then, as a part of his atonement process, take up the shield and say, I am going to, stand for this, cause. I'm going to do as much good as I can now that I've done some bad, to try to make up for it, because he's, was brainwashed and whatnot. And the next movie will start with him and maybe get like halfway through, and then it'll be revealed that Captain America was not dead, and they'll come back. So there won't be a Captain America movie without Captain America, but there'll be less that what's-his-face has to do. Chris Evans.
Yeah, so Chris Evans will be upset for like a few days instead of like 90 days.
Right. That's how I feel like that they're going to handle that. And I don't think that Falcon is going to become Captain America. I think he'll be his own, he'll just kind of be a side supporting character there.
Yeah, which I thought it was kind of cool in The Winter Soldier, so I was thinking it would be better to keep him as Falcon anyway.
Yeah, keep him as Falcon. I'm sure they'll find a way to have him come back in the next one. He'll probably be a bigger role in the next one. So, all that stuff. I'm really looking forward to finding out how that universe develops with what has gone on in that movie, and also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They sort of carried that over in their shared universe. That was a great moment. Once they finally kicked off the Captain America stuff and they tipped that over in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that was when that show started to get good. Really get good. So I was...
Does it have another season coming? Because I kept thinking it was going to get canceled with how poorly reviewed it was being.
I think it's going to get another season. And hopefully the season will be good.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people trash on it, and I understand why, but I don't think that's...
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about, like, the Nick Fury thing and all that, where it happened, like, right when the movie was released, and, like, it coincided with all that.
Yeah, and I actually kind of liked how they sort of did that crossover in that the stuff that happened in Captain America, like, they referenced the Thor movie when it came out, and they're kind of cleaning up afterwards, like, man, why do these gods have to, like, make all this mess, and then we have to clean it up, and they're just like, we fly off to Asgard, we're having fun. But in the Captain America crossover actually mattered to the whole storyline of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and once that happened, it felt like almost they knew that was coming, which I assume they did, and they were just piddling around for the first part of the season, waiting for it to come, like, yeah, well, the good stuff will happen later, and that they just sort of squandered a lot of good opportunities.
Yeah.
But that was my interpretation of it anyway, but once that actually kicked off and sort of carried over in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I thought the show got a lot better, so...
For sure.
Sorry I'm losing my energy, guys. I screamed too much, and my kid woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, so...
Hey, man, enjoy those last 250-some hours.
It's 2 less now.
But anyway, thank you guys for listening. You guys know the drill. If you guys want to help us out, like, this podcast is supported entirely by you guys. If you want to help Al out, go to Amazon.com, pick up, like, What the Dog Saw or the Mulch Pile, something like that.
I would really appreciate that if you would do that, by the way. I got a new cover from What the Dog Saw. Joseph Devon had that design for me, and that was super cool. And, you know, I think it's a strong book. I always, like, I don't know how people react to stuff, and a lot of my stuff isn't, widely,
It's a strong book, and it's a quick read. It's something that you could do, like, if you sat down in a good afternoon, you'd be able to get through it. But it's definitely awesome work. Like, it was the first thing that I read from you other than, like, short stories, and it was awesome. It was one of the things that had us, like, actually start talking on Twitter all those months and months ago.
I should probably, like, try to promote that stuff more often, but sometimes I'm ashamed of it. I'm like, what if it's not very good? Like, what if people don't like this and I'm just, like, shoving them?
Oh, you got to promote it to see. So
I guess.
Yeah, this week we are brought to you by What the Dog Saw, so you guys should check that out. If you want to support us in other ways, go to humanechoes.com, spread the word, hit up the tip jar, which is a PayPal link, just things like that.
Also, keep checking out the Writers Arena. Me and Ellie had our face-off last week, although by the time this airs will be the week before last or whatever. She handed me my pants. And that one. Everybody kept talking about, like, oh, this is so close. I'm like, it's not that close. She got, like, 10 votes, and I got 2. I mean... And
it was definitely a unanimous decision, but it was like, sometimes it's good for the TWA people to lose a little bit. I think, like, you got to get humbled every once in a while.
I can say this without sounding cocky. I was happy with my story.
Yeah, it was good.
I put up what I wanted to put up, and I said the things I wanted to say, and I'm glad that people liked hers better. I mean, I'm not bitter or anything like, but I'm not ashamed of what I put up on that story. I like.
Oh, it's. Like, the way we were looking at it, like, this was the biggest story week we've had as far as, like, just the 2 best writers. Like, you and Joseph Devon are, like, definitely the top tier for our site. Danny Brophy and I are good. But, like, Ellie's my favorite competitor we've had on here so far, not just because I've met her, but because she writes awesome stuff. So it was like, just a lot of anticipation waiting for you guys' stories to pop in. So that was cool.
Well, I was really glad that you guys judged me high enough to go up against her, so thank you very much.
Yep.
And
anyway,
we'll see you next week. We'll be talking about a movie called Grace, which is about a zombie baby. So if you guys want to find that somewhere, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I like this.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not sure what to expect, but we will definitely get into the nitty-gritty of it, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you for listening.
Death Pit!